The silence was a physical thing, pressing down on me, suffocating me with the weight of his words. The air in the room crackled with unspoken venom, a battlefield where love had once bloomed. He stood there, a statue carved from regret and misplaced pride, and I knew in that moment that everything had changed. The life we had built, the promises we had whispered in the dark, all of it shattered into a million pieces, glittering shards of what could have been, now cutting me with their sharp edges. If you would do anything to protect your sister, subscribe now. We had met during my last year of college, a whirlwind romance that swept me off my feet. His name was Mark, and he possessed a charm that could disarm even the most cynical heart. He was older, more established, and offered a stability I craved after years of chaotic family life. Avery, fell hard and fast, blinded by the illusion of a fairy tale. He painted a picture of a future filled with laughter, shared dreams, and unwavering devotion. I believed him. We married within a year, bought a house in the suburbs, and began the carefully curated life of a young, successful couple. Our friends envied us. My family adored him. Everything seemed perfect, or at least perfectly orchestrated. The first cracks appeared subtly. A late night at the office became a regular occurrence. Weekend trips with the guys started popping up on the calendar. He became distant, preoccupied, his eyes holding a secret I couldn't decipher. I tried to talk to him to bridge the growing gap between us, but he brushed me off, attributing his behavior to stress from work. I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, but the unease gnawed at me, a persistent whisper in the back of my mind. Then came the argument, a petty disagreement that quickly escalated into a screaming match. It was during this storm of raised voices and simmering resentment that he uttered those soul-crushing words. "I left a better woman for you." Maybe that was my mistake. The room went silent, the air thick with unspoken accusations. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, throwing me off balance. His words were a slap in the face, a brutal admission that everything I thought we had was a lie. The casual cruelty of his statement was a dagger to the heart, twisting with agonizing precision. My carefully constructed world crumbled around me, revealing the shaky foundations upon which it had been built. I stared at him, my mind reeling, trying to reconcile the man I loved with the callous stranger standing before me. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, a realization that I had been living a carefully constructed lie. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The naive, trusting girl who had fallen head over heels for Mark vanished, replaced by a woman hardened by betrayal and fueled by a burning desire for justice. I looked him directly in the eyes, my voice soft but firm, masking the storm raging within me. "Then go fix your mistake," I said, each word a carefully placed brick in the wall I was building around my heart. I turned and walked out, leaving him standing there, dumbfounded by my unexpected response. Later that night, the inevitable text arrived. "We need to talk, now," I read the message, a cold smile playing on my lips. He thought he could summon me back with a few carefully chosen words that I would come crawling back, begging for his forgiveness. He underestimated me. He had mistaken my silence for weakness, my heartbreak for defeat. He was wrong, so very wrong. When he finally did see what was waiting outside the house, he couldn't even speak. The following weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and tear-stained mornings. I replayed his words over and over in my head, each repetition a fresh wound. The silence in our house was deafening, broken only by the occasional forced pleasantry when we crossed paths. I tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, going to work, meeting friends for coffee, but inside I was crumbling. The weight of his betrayal was a constant burden, a heavy cloak that smothered my joy and stifled my spirit. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in a stranger's life. I attempted to salvage what was left of our marriage, suggesting couples therapy, planning romantic dinners, trying to reignite the spark that had once burned so brightly. But my efforts were met with indifference, a wall of apathy that seemed impenetrable. He was going through the motions, his heart clearly elsewhere. Each failed attempt chipped away at my resolve, reinforcing the painful truth that our relationship was beyond repair. The house, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and love, now felt like a prison, each room a reminder of what I had lost. I started avoiding him, retreating into my own world, seeking solace in books and long walks in the park. I confided in my sister, Sarah, pouring out my heart in tearful phone calls. She was my rock, my unwavering source of support, offering words of encouragement and reminding me of my strength. "You deserve better, Avery," she would say, her voice filled with righteous anger. "Don't let him break you." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. Despite her support, the pain was relentless, a constant ache in my chest. I found myself questioning everything, wondering if I had misread the signs, if I had been too naive, too trusting. The self-doubt was corrosive, eating away at my confidence and leaving me feeling vulnerable and exposed. One evening, I decided to confront him, to demand answers, to force him to acknowledge the pain he was causing. I waited for him to come home from work, my heart pounding in my chest. When he finally walked through the door, his eyes were distant, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling slightly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, his usual sign of annoyance. "Not now, Avery," he said. "I'm tired." "No, Mark," I insisted, my voice rising. "We're going to talk now." Deserve an explanation. He rolled his eyes, his patience clearly wearing thin. "What do you want me to say?" he snapped. "That I made a mistake, that I'm not happy, is that what you want to hear?" His words were like a slap in the face, confirming my worst fears. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. "Why?" I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "Why did you do this to me, to us?" He shrugged, his indifference a sharp contrast to my pain. "I don't know, Avery," he said. "Things change. People change." His callousness was unbearable, a final betrayal that shattered the last vestiges of hope. I turned away, unable to look at him any longer, the crimson rising in my vision. "Just go," I said, my voice barely audible. "Just get out." He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and walked out the door, leaving me standing there, alone in the wreckage of our shattered marriage. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't continue living like this, trapped in a cycle of pain and despair. I had to take control of my life, to reclaim my happiness, to find a way to heal from this devastating betrayal. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I would not be a victim. I would emerge from this stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. The seeds of revenge were sown that night, watered by my tears and fueled by my unwavering resolve. He thought he had broken me. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. The days that followed were a descent into darkness, a freefall into an abyss of despair. Sleep offered no escape, only nightmares filled with his face, his betraying words echoing in my ears. The house felt empty, haunted by the ghost of our past. I wandered through the rooms like a sleepwalker, touching familiar objects, trying to conjure the memories that now felt like a cruel joke. Food became an enemy, each bite a reminder of the emptiness within me. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loosely on my frame, mirroring the unraveling of my life. Work was a blur, a series of robotic movements performed with detached precision. I smiled at clients, nodded at colleagues, all the while feeling like an imposter, a hollow shell pretending to be a person. My sister Sarah tried her best to pull me out of the darkness, calling me every day, inviting me to dinner, suggesting weekend getaways. But her efforts were futile, bouncing off the thick wall of grief that surrounded me. I was grateful for her support, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a burden, a black hole sucking the joy out of her life. I isolated myself from my friends, canceling plans, ignoring calls, retreating further into my shell. The thought of facing them, of explaining what had happened, was unbearable. I couldn't bear to see the pity in their eyes, to hear their platitudes of comfort. I was ashamed, humiliated, convinced that I was somehow to blame for his betrayal. Had I not been good enough? Had I failed him in some way? The questions swirled in my mind, a relentless torment that offered no respite. One afternoon, I found myself driving aimlessly, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just wanted to escape, to outrun the pain that was consuming me. The world outside my car window was a blur of colors and shapes, a meaningless landscape reflecting the chaos within me. As I drove, my thoughts grew darker, more desperate. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight that threatened to suffocate me. I began to wonder if there was any point in going on, if life was worth living without love, without trust, without hope. The thought was terrifying, but also strangely comforting, a promise of escape from the relentless torment. I drove faster, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. The crimson blurred, the scenery fading into a wash of colors. I closed my eyes for a moment, surrendering to the darkness, letting the despair wash over me. In that instant, a memory flashed through my mind. My sister Sarah, her face etched with worry, her voice filled with love. Her words echoed in my ears. "You deserve better, Avery. Don't let him break you." The memory was a jolt, a sudden awakening from a deep slumber. I slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt just inches from a guardrail. I sat there, trembling, my heart pounding in my chest, the realization of what I had almost done hitting me with full force. The crimson drained from my face, replaced by a cold wave of clarity. I had been so consumed by pain, so blinded by despair, that I had almost thrown everything away. I had almost given him the ultimate victory, allowing him to destroy me completely. The thought filled me with a surge of anger, a burning rage that eclipsed the despair. He didn't deserve that power, that control over my life. He had taken so much from me, but he would not take my life. Not now, not ever. I took a deep breath, my hands still shaking, and looked out at the world around me. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the landscape. The sky was a blaze of colors, a reminder of the beauty that still existed in the world. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The victim mentality, the self-doubt, the despair, all began to recede, replaced by a cold, unwavering determination. I would not let him destroy me. I would not let him win. I would fight back. I would reclaim my life. I started the car, turned it around, and drove back towards the city, a new sense of purpose filling my veins. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness, and I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever before. When I got home, I didn't collapse into tears. I didn't reach for a bottle of wine. I went straight to my computer. That night, I started planning. I began by gathering information, meticulously documenting every detail of our life together, every transaction, every conversation, every interaction. I scoured our financial records, searching for discrepancies, for hidden accounts, for any sign of wrongdoing. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman recommended by Sarah, and began discussing my options. I learned about my rights, about the legal avenues available to me. I discovered that Mark had been secretly transferring assets into an offshore account for years, a clear violation of our marital agreement. The discovery fueled my anger, hardening my resolve. He thought he could get away with it, that he could betray me and steal my future without consequence. He was wrong. I also started digging into his past, reaching out to former colleagues, old friends, anyone who might have information about his previous relationships. I discovered a pattern of behavior, a history of infidelity and deceit that stretched back years. He had done this before, leaving a trail of broken hearts and shattered lives in his wake. The realization solidified my purpose. I wouldn't just get revenge for myself, but for all the women he had hurt. As I delved deeper, I uncovered a secret, a hidden truth that sent a shiver down my spine. It was something he had kept hidden for years, something that could destroy his reputation and shatter his carefully constructed world. The information was a weapon, a powerful tool that I could use to bring him down. But I knew I had to be careful, to plan my attack with precision and patience. He was a formidable opponent, cunning and ruthless, and he wouldn't hesitate to use any means necessary to protect himself. I spent weeks, months, meticulously gathering evidence, building my case, preparing for the final confrontation. I transformed from a heartbroken victim into a strategic planner, a calculating strategist, a woman driven by a single, unwavering goal to make him pay for what he had done. He thought he had broken me. He was about to discover that he had created a monster. The silence was no longer a sign of weakness, but a mask, concealing the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. My days of being a victim were over, the game had changed, and I was ready to play. The transformation was complete. Avery, the betrayed wife, had vanished, replaced by a meticulous strategist. I became a ghost in my own home, observing Mark, learning his routines, his weaknesses, his vulnerabilities. Every smile, every forced pleasantry was a performance, a carefully constructed facade designed to lull him into a false sense of security. I recorded everything. Phone calls saved, emails archived. Even casual conversations were transcribed and analyzed. I installed surveillance cameras disguised as everyday objects, a smoke detector in the living room, a bookshelf speaker in the bedroom, even a pen holder in his office. The feeds were encrypted, accessible only through a secure server, ensuring that my activities remained hidden. The house became a web of secrets, a stage for the drama that was about to unfold. He suspected nothing, blinded by his arrogance, convinced that he had silenced me. He continued his affair, brazenly flaunting his deceit, unaware that his every move was being watched, every word recorded. He'd bring her to our restaurants. He'd buy her our jewelry. Each act was a fresh knife twisting in my heart and more fuel for the fire. The legal battle was a slow, grinding process. My lawyer, Ms. Evans, was a bulldog, relentless in her pursuit of justice. She filed subpoenas, deposed witnesses, and meticulously dissected Mark's financial records. The offshore account was a goldmine, a clear indication of his intent to defraud me. We hired a forensic accountant to trace the flow of funds, uncovering a complex web of transactions designed to conceal his assets. The evidence was damning, irrefutable proof of his guilt. He tried to intimidate me, sending threatening emails, making veiled references to my past, attempting to undermine my confidence. But I refused to be cowed. I had come too far, sacrificed too much to back down now. Each threat only strengthened my resolve, fueling my determination to see him brought to justice. There were close calls. One evening, Mark almost discovered one of the hidden cameras. He was tinkering with the smoke detector in the living room when he paused, a look of suspicion on his face. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched him on the monitor, my finger hovering over the power button, ready to shut down the system at a moment's notice. He fiddled with the device for what seemed like an eternity before finally dismissing his concerns and moving on. I exhaled, my body trembling with relief, narrowly avoiding disaster. Another time, he questioned me about my lawyer, commenting on Ms. Evans' reputation as a shark. I played it cool, feigning ignorance, assuring him that I had only consulted with her briefly and had no intention of pursuing legal action. He seemed satisfied, but I knew I had to be more careful, to conceal my activities even more diligently. The secret I had uncovered about Mark's past was my trump card. It involved a business deal gone wrong, a series of fraudulent transactions that had cost investors millions of dollars. The information was buried deep, hidden beneath layers of legal obfuscation, but I had managed to unearth the truth, thanks to a former colleague of Mark's who had been burned by the deal. The colleague, driven by bitterness and a desire for revenge, had provided me with the documents I needed to expose Mark's wrongdoing. The information was explosive, enough to trigger a criminal investigation and potentially land him in jail. But I knew I couldn't reveal it prematurely. I had to wait for the right moment to deploy it strategically to maximize its impact. The anticipation was agonizing, a constant pressure building inside me. I wanted to unleash the truth, to watch his world crumble around him, but I knew that patience was key. I had to wait for the perfect opportunity to strike, to deliver the final, devastating blow. Mark, meanwhile, continued to live his life, oblivious to the storm that was gathering around him. He seemed carefree, almost happy, as if he had completely erased me from his memory. He spent his weekends with his mistress, traveling to exotic locations, posting pictures on social media, rubbing his happiness in my face. Each post was a reminder of his betrayal, a fresh source of pain, but I refused to let it break me. I used the anger, the resentment, the pain as fuel, channeling it into my plan, refining my strategy, preparing for the moment of reckoning. The end was near. I could feel it in my bones. The pieces were in place. The stage was set. All that remained was to trigger the final act, and I knew exactly how to do it. The plan was complex, ruthless, perfect. The perfect opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. Mark received an invitation to an exclusive industry gala, a black-tie affair attended by the city's elite. It was the kind of event he craved, a chance to network, to impress, to bask in the glow of success. He preened like a peacock, meticulously selecting his attire, obsessing over every detail. He even bought a new designer dress for his mistress, eager to show her off to his colleagues. I knew this was it. This was the stage I needed. The gala was being held at the prestigious Grand Ballroom, a sprawling venue with multiple levels, hidden alcoves, and a state-of-the-art sound system. It was a labyrinth of opportunity, a playground for my revenge. I secured an invitation through a friend in public relations, ensuring that I would have access to every corner of the building. I spent weeks planning my every move, mapping out the venue, identifying key locations, coordinating with my allies. Ms. Evans would be there, ready to serve Mark with the divorce papers the moment I gave the signal. My colleague, the one he screwed over, would be on standby with copies of the fraudulent documents, ready to distribute them to the press. And I would be the conductor of this symphony of destruction, orchestrating every note, ensuring that Mark's downfall was both spectacular and complete. The night of the gala arrived, thick with anticipation. I slipped into a stunning black gown, a dress that accentuated my figure and exuded confidence. I spent hours perfecting my makeup, carefully concealing the weariness behind a mask of glamour. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The broken, defeated wife was gone, replaced by a powerful, determined force. I arrived at the grand ballroom fashionably late, just as the party was reaching its peak. The room was a swirl of lights, music, and laughter. Champagne flowed freely, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume. I scanned the crowd, searching for Mark. It didn't take long to spot him. He was standing near the bar, surrounded by a group of admirers, his mistress clinging to his arm like a prize. He was laughing, gesturing expansively, completely unaware of the trap that was about to spring. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. This was it. The moment of truth. I made my way through the crowd, my eyes fixed on my target. As I approached, I could feel his gaze drawn to me. He paused mid-sentence, his expression shifting from amusement to surprise. He recognized me, of course, but he couldn't quite place the change in my demeanor. The fear began to creep into his eyes, a flicker of unease that quickly turned to panic. I reached him, stopping just a few feet away. "Mark," I said, my voice cool and steady, "we need to talk." He tried to brush me off, to dismiss me with a wave of his hand, but I wouldn't let him. I stepped closer, invading his personal space, forcing him to acknowledge me. "This can't wait," I said, my voice hardening. "It's about the divorce and a few other things." He glanced nervously at his mistress, then back at me. "Avery, please," he said, his voice strained. "This isn't the time or the place." "Oh, I think it is," I said, a sly smile playing on my lips. "In fact, I think it's the perfect time and the perfect place." I nodded subtly towards Ms. Evans, who was standing nearby, waiting for my signal. She moved forward, approaching Mark with the divorce papers in her hand. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice sharp and professional, "I'm here to serve you with some legal documents." Mark's face paled. He knew he was trapped. He tried to protest, to argue, but Ms. Evans was relentless. She thrust the papers into his hand, her eyes boring into his. "You've been served," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. The crowd began to murmur, sensing that something was amiss. All eyes were on Mark, watching his humiliation unfold. And that was just the beginning. I raised my hand, signaling to my colleague. He stepped forward, distributing copies of the fraudulent documents to the reporters in the crowd. The documents spread like wildfire, igniting a frenzy of speculation and outrage. Mark's face contorted in a mask of fury and despair. He lunged towards my colleague, attempting to grab the documents, but he was quickly intercepted by security. The room erupted in chaos. People were shouting, reporters were clamoring for answers, and Mark was screaming at the top of his lungs. He was completely exposed, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. I watched him, my heart filled with a cold, satisfying sense of justice. He had thought he could betray me, that he could steal my future without consequence. He was wrong. So very wrong. I leaned in close to him, whispering in his ear. "Remember when you said I was nothing without you?" I asked, my voice laced with venom. "Look at me now." I straightened up, taking a step back, allowing the full force of his downfall to wash over him. He was trapped, surrounded, defeated, and then I dropped the final bomb. I turned to the DJ, who was waiting for my cue, and gave him a nod. The music stopped abruptly, replaced by a recording of Mark's voice. A recording of him confessing to everything. The affair, the theft, the fraud. The room fell silent, the only sound Mark's own words echoing through the speakers, sealing his fate. The recording played, each word a hammer blow to Mark's carefully constructed facade. His face, once radiating smug confidence, was now a canvas of horror. The crimson drained from his cheeks, leaving him ashen. His mistress, who moments before had been draped on his arm like an expensive accessory, recoiled as if burned. The whispers intensified, morphing into open condemnation. He looked around, desperate for an escape, but found none. The room had become a cage, and he was the trapped animal. Security guards, alerted by the commotion, moved in to escort him away, but the crowd surged forward, eager to witness his downfall. Reporters shoved microphones in his face, demanding answers, their questions like daggers twisting in his gut. He stumbled, nearly falling, his eyes wide with panic. As they dragged him away, he locked eyes with me, a silent plea for mercy etched on his face. But I offered none. Only a cold, detached stare. I watched him disappear through the doors, his life as he knew it vanishing with him. The gala, once a celebration of success and affluence, had transformed into his public execution. The silence that followed his departure was deafening, broken only by the clicking of cameras and the murmurs of the stunned onlookers. Ms. Evans approached me, a triumphant smile on her face. "It's over," she said, handing me a glass of champagne. "He's finished." I took a sip, the bubbles dancing on my tongue, but the taste was far from sweet. It was bitter, acrid, a reminder of the pain and betrayal that had led me to this moment. The fallout was swift and devastating. The news of Mark's fraud and infidelity spread like wildfire, engulfing his career and reputation in flames. His company's stock plummeted, his business partners severed ties, and his name became synonymous with deceit and corruption. He was forced to resign from his position, his legacy tarnished beyond repair. The criminal investigation was launched, and he faced the prospect of years in prison. His mistress, once so eager to bask in his wealth and power, abandoned him, fleeing to another city to escape the scandal. He lost everything: his money, his status, his freedom, his friends, his family. He was alone, isolated, a pariah shunned by all. In the weeks that followed, I received countless messages of support and gratitude. Former colleagues, old friends, even complete strangers reached out to thank me for exposing Mark's wrongdoing, for bringing him to justice. Many shared their own stories of betrayal and abuse, finding solace in my courage and resilience. I became a symbol of hope for those who had been wronged, a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of standing up for what is right. But despite the accolades and the sense of vindication, I found no joy in Mark's suffering. His downfall did not erase the pain he had inflicted upon me, nor did it restore the years he had stolen from my life. It simply brought a sense of closure, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had finally paid the price for his actions. I moved on with my life, rebuilding my career, rediscovering my passions, and surrounding myself with people who loved and supported me. The scars of the past remained, but they served as a reminder of my strength and resilience, proof that I could overcome any obstacle, endure any hardship. I learned to trust my instincts, to value my worth, and to never allow anyone to treat me with disrespect. I emerged from the ashes stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live a life of purpose and fulfillment. I even started a foundation to help women in similar situations, providing them with the resources and support they needed to escape abusive relationships and rebuild their lives. It was my way of turning my pain into something positive, of using my experience to make a difference in the world. Looking back on that night at the gala, I felt a sense of detachment, as if I were watching a movie of someone else's life. The woman who had stood up to Mark, who had orchestrated his downfall with such precision and ruthlessness, seemed like a different person, a warrior forged in the fires of betrayal. But I knew that she was still a part of me, a reminder of the strength and resilience that lay dormant within us all, waiting to be awakened when we are pushed to our limits. The cameras were flashing in my memory. I looked at my reflection one last time. This was the new me, the strong me, the free me. They lost everything. I just smiled. Revenge isn't sweet, it's necessary. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.